Down and down, well, no, there is something, I hear the kids, they are something wrong, I don't want to be here. But, we would think there was a situation, I was actually yours.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, right, I got the blood pumping a little.
It's Bill.
Scott, I feel like we're getting around.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we're on community hall.
I would think either one. Oh,
Hello, Jeff. Can you hear us?
Yes,
Ah, awesome. Thanks.
Do we each need to unmute when we?
No, no. And is the volume okay for you?
Scott, your volume is good. I couldn't hear, somebody else said something, I could barely hear them.
Yeah, everybody needs to be like 2 inches away from the microphone or it doesn't pick it up adequately. So,
Hello. That's better.
all right. We're still waiting for one person who's arrived but is not in the room, and then Rebecca Flynn, who is our secretary, which is a critical element of the meeting. So
Okay.
hang in there for a minute.
I don't know where I do.
I've been driving this.
I mean, yeah, one.
If you're not a clerk and you're not at OCL, where are you?
I'm tired.
I'm not gonna retire until it's good to me.
Okay.
That may
Sounds
be
like the plan.
so ideal.
So Ronnie, in the absence of Rebecca, would you be willing to take notes for today? Once Levy gets back in the room, I think we ought to start since it is after 7. You at home? Okay, well, I think. Well, I think we have a quorum, so I think we should start the meeting. I think we have to get going. So, okay, so call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. So let me do a roll call. Jay Saleh. Here. Ronnie Krasinski. Here. Anita Wotus. Leslie Field.
Here.
Scott Elrod, I'm here. Absent at the moment is Loverine Taylor. For purposes of the minutes, she wants to be Loverine, not Lovey. And then Rebecca Flynn. So, okay, so we're gonna jump into it. Okay, so oral communication. So this is for anybody among us or among the public who has something to contribute to the meeting that is not on the agenda. So non-agenda items. So I don't see anybody from the public here. Do any of us have things that are not on the agenda that we feel we want to speak about? No.
I don't know if everyone saw it. One thing that was interesting was,
Can you need to be much closer.
Thank you.
just to mention, I don't know if everyone saw the Berkeley related ruling about their electrification that was seemingly turned cut down by the court. I guess that was the Federal SF Court of Appeal or something like that.
Yeah, it was a sub panel of the Ninth Circuit. And they cited sort of federal energy policy, which can't be superseded as a reason to strike that down. So I've talked a little bit with the town attorney. We're not sure. I mean, we're going to have to keep watching because there's a chance it'll get appealed to the full circuit. It could ultimately be appealed to the Supreme Court. Short answer is we don't know what the actual impact is going to be yet. It was surprising, honestly, and a little disappointing. But I mean, there was going to be pushback on all of this, so it's kind of just another that process was going to play out over time, and it's playing out now. So
I would just add that for purposes of minutes, Loverine Taylor is now with us and Rebecca Flynn is now with us. Ronnie's taken a few notes. Are you ready to go, Rebecca? Almost. Okay, almost. Looks like if there are no other oral communications, then I'd like to jump to the next item, which is introductions. And we want to welcome a new member to our committee. Wonderful to have you, Leslie. So it's Leslie Field who is joining us officially. And so maybe could you just say a little bit about your background and let us know that and you know, if you have off the top of your head there are interests in our committee that you can speak to, that'd be also great.
Great, yeah. Well, first, I'm really delighted to be here, and this is a great group, so very happy about that. I'm torn between eye contact and being heard. Guess I'd better go for the being heard. So my background is I'm an engineer for a long, long time, and degrees from MIT and Berkeley all through the PhD, and had a nice career doing those sorts of things, chemical engineering, MEMS sensors, things like that. And then ended up getting very, very interested in climate change. The Al Gore movie woke me up, and I looked at our 6 and 10-year-old kids and said, well, somebody will do something. Well, what if they don't? You know, so finally saying, well, if not me, who, if not when? And, you know, I have the luxury of a really great academic background, so why not see what I could do? So I've been doing that since 2006, mainly focused on preserving ice because it's a key lever on climate change, but I've got 3 threads going right now. The ice stuff. So I've just founded a second nonprofit, a new nonprofit that's very mission oriented towards trying to help save Himalayan glacial ice, or any glacial ice really, but we got invited to work in the Himalayas. And that's really nice to be invited in to help people with a problem that they're suffering from now. The suffering isn't nice, but the being able to try to address the real need is, you know, that's what we're trying to do. And then I teach at Stanford, and there's some veterans here of that, so that's great. Class, just finished my 13th year of teaching just 1 unit class, one quarter a year, but engineering, entrepreneurship, and climate change to try to help the students understand from freshman through graduate level. So I'll take them all. What could you do in climate? You know, how would you get started? Everything that I wished I knew in 2006 when I suddenly decided to, hey, this could be the thing I'm working on. And then the third thing I'm doing right now is pivoting my consulting company, which has mostly been focused around biomedical solutions and things with, you know, with MEMS sensing and such, to sustainability issues. And I see there's a real convergence of, if you worry about ice, you're going to be worrying about water. And so it really comes down to water in flood and drought and wildfires looking out our window up the hill, you know, it's like, so how bad is the wildfire going to be? So that nexus of needs is a lot of what we're about to turn my consulting company into. So it's a pretty active life. But when I saw who's on the committee these days, I thought, you know, these guys, this is the right team to make an impact. This is the time to do it. So here I am.
Great. Well, yeah, it's fantastic to have you. Thank you. Yeah. So we now have a full complement of members. We have 7, there are 7 of us. And so we'll talk a little bit later about whether we want to make the committee even larger or not. But let's go with the agenda. So the next item on the list is to hear from Mayor Jeff Alfs about the council priorities. And I don't know whether that's a presentation and discussion but however you want to do it, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll share my screen and just sort of kind of what we have, which is really just an outline from our March 8th discussion. I'll present and then interrupt me with questions as you need to, and then we could discuss a little bit afterwards. So this should be, I'll keep this very brief. So, you know, every year the council kind of sets and revises its priorities. And this year, especially with a new council, we sort of, I think we took a little bit sort of a longer look and deeper dive than we might have in previous years. Although I think we're pretty thoughtful about it every year. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and go through kind of the first draft we came up with in March. And it's just sort of an opportunity to share this with all of you get feedback from you on it, and then we'll bring it back to the council. We're going through all the committees right now and just getting sort of your input on it. So like I said, feel free to interrupt me with questions. And let me see if I can find. Sorry, bear with me. Oh. Okay. Are you,
So
you
I-
should be seeing a Word document now. Is that, how does that look?
I do. on the computer.
Okay, so again, I apologize. This is a, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, this is a very rough draft. It's kind of our first pass at it. And so this is just kind of where we started with priorities. And again, I just want to hear comments, feedback, questions, anything that comes to mind. Okay, so we reorganized the priorities a bit and wanted to sort of start with the really high levels are the bullet points. So the very highest levels would be safety, fiscal responsibility and accountable governance, forward-thinking planning, sustainable and resilient town. And then the subpoints under here would be emergency preparedness, emergency response, assessment and mitigation of hazard and risk, public safety, especially crime is becoming a concern, and community preparedness. And then for fiscal responsibility and accountable governments, fiscal auditing, timely fiscal auditing and reporting, operational efficiencies, transparency, and community engagement and communications. And forward-thinking planning, we have long-term revenue needs, long-term revenue sources, a master plan for the town center, monitoring of our infrastructure, and at some point we're talking about a general plan update. And then the final priority under the final priority, we have promoting sustainability. That's you guys. Land use, including planning for affordable housing, protecting and enhancing environmental resources, and the post-adoption housing element process. So again, these are sort of the revamped priorities and some of the highest points on here. So, what I'm looking for would be, just questions or comments you have on each of these points, what's missing, what you agree with, what you have questions about. I guess this is what we have. So I guess I'll take questions.
Oh, Lovey, you need the microphone to be like 2
Yeah.
inches from your mouth. You need to move it much closer, much closer. It's still much closer.
Like this.
I have it on my chin when I'm there.
Okay. Okay,
No,
no,
No, it's got to be really close.
okay,
Correct.
and that's
That's
gotta
better.
be.
Thank you. That's
The
better.
last item under sustainability, I don't understand what that is. Post-adoption housing element process,
Yes. So
what
this
is
is
that?
this is kind of sort of the various things when we have adopted a housing element. This is kind of what sort of the various things that will happen in terms of implementing that housing element. And so it involves some public outreach. People want to maybe revisit the housing element over time. There might be other, monitoring the progress on the housing element, including things like, how do we do on promoting ADUs was one thing people are very interested in. It's kind of just all the steps that go into implementing the housing element once it's in place.
I have one question, Jeff. So there's a certain level of promoting sustainability that is done now. Information sharing, ordinances, variety of things that the town does. I've heard conversations about, well, maybe the town ought to take more of a position on certain sustainability issues, for example, and I'm not sure exactly what that would be, but more of an advocacy role, the town advocating within the United States, for example, or within San Mateo County or whatever. Do you think the sort of balance of current activities, which are more information focused and ordinance focused, is the right mix? Or do you think this might represent an expansion of more activist kinds of undertakings by the town itself?
I like to think that we've been a leadership voice in the community in the past. And I always, I mean, I like for us to sort of at least take some stands, at least that are a little more kind of out in front of people, more progressive. Um, I like to think of communities like ours as being places that can be test beds for things. For example, we have a wealthy population, people who are interested in, people who are often interested in being kind of early adopters or beta testers for things, and we've done some of that in the past. I would like to. I hope we can continue to do that. Um, I don't know. I'd like us, I personally, I'd like us to be more outward facing. Whether we will have the resources to kind of support that is always a question.
Okay, yeah, good, thanks.
I have a crazy dream that sort of follows that, if this is the right time for that.
Sure.
In the Science and Nature Committee years ago, when I was on that, they had, the airplane night or whatever, flight night, which was really a nice festival of getting all the science nerds in town together.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking something similar to that for sustainability, right? We've got so many inventors and people who are really deeply into sustainability in the town. It would be fun to have, in addition to these music paloozas, which believe me, I'm completely into as well, to have creativity paloozas, if you would, for sustainable solutions. So any openness for that?
You know what? We used to do Earth Day, and it's kind of, I'm unfortunately, it's kind of, it was, in some ways I'd say it was a casualty of COVID, but it's also been a little bit of a casualty of just not having the resources to have people around for it as much. Earth Day was a kind of natural place for this stuff to put this in front of the community. Short of that, maybe we sort of, I mean, yeah, Nature and Science is trying to do one or two, like they're trying to do, they do star parties. They've talked about trying to reorganize Flight Night, which took it was dependent on a lot of outside volunteers, and so it was not always easy to pull together. It's the kind of thing Earth Day was a nice way to do it, and some other event like that, or even just smaller things. Nature and Science is doing a composting, or did a composting day, I think, earlier this year. Maybe events focused around like water, like we've in the past, we've done things with water safety. We've done things with energy efficiency upgrades and such. Yeah, it'd be nice to get a few more events like that in maybe.
Would there be any budget if people wanted, to have snacks at the thing, or maybe it works like the town picnic day? Maybe I'm getting too far down this rabbit hole, but I guess when I'm thinking about it being like the picnic, it might actually be a revenue producer rather than a money consumer, even if you sell
Yeah.
hot dogs and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I mean, I think there'd be a small budget for something. I mean, I wouldn't go out and plan on it being a revenue generator, but I think could be a small budget for some kind of entertainment or food or something. So within, on the order of like a couple $1,000, something like that. Yes.
Other, oh, go ahead.
I had a question. When we say promoting sustainability, I'm wondering if we don't need to make that a little more specific, as in promoting actions that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and, reduce water usage, sort of specifically where we need to get in there to make changes, because promoting sustainability, it's sort of a
It's vague.
feel-goody kind of
Yeah.
thing, but it's not really getting to what we really need to be doing. And a lot of the things we really need to do tend to inconvenience people. So, or
Yeah.
may or may not, the gas stove issue. There's no way I would ever go back to a gas stove personally. But,
Yes.
other people are attached to it for whatever reason.
Yep.
So they would find it inconvenient. But I feel as a sustainability member, and certainly that's our charter, is to reduce greenhouse gases and to reduce water use. So, if we're going to be putting this on what the town's goals are, to me, that we need to be pretty specific about this.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point.
Any other
Other comments,
inputs,
other questions?
questions or inputs?
and don't, you don't have to limit yourselves to the sustainability portion of this. If there's anything, your thoughts on other things, you're welcome to express those as well. Just, obviously, I know where I know where your passions lie, so.
Well, you don't know where mine lie yet. But that evacuation bullet point, yes,
Yep,
good Lord,
yep.
yes.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a reason why it's right at the top, frankly.
Okay.
I had one other question is about the public safety issue. I mean, everybody's
Sure.
always concerned about public safety, but Portola Valley is one of the safest places in the county and in the country. So yes, of course, we should always consider, make sure we're aware of it and do what
Yes.
we can. But I think that by continuously making a big deal about public safety when there is very little crime, and yes, a few people have been hit badly, but in the scheme of things, it's pretty minor. So I don't know, the more we harp on it, the more people think it's an issue when it's not really. So
Yeah. The sheriff's office was out here last month and did a presentation on this. And yeah, our crime, you're right, our crime levels, I mean, a few, they've drawn attention because there's a few high profile cases. Our numbers are actually still quite low. I agree. It's a fair point.
I
know.
have a pushing boundaries question. PG&E hasn't really been doing the right thing in town, right? And nor AT&T as far as we can tell.
Yes.
Do we have the power to help make things more sustainable in that way? I mean, we've seen just at the bottom of our road, which is supposed to be, it's right off Portola Road, lines falling and causing fires that had it not been so rainy right then would have been terrible. I mean, how are we going to get things undergrounded and, dealt with in a much better way, right?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is we have almost no leverage over PG&E right now. This is an interesting question of we have a franchise agreement with them that is very, very, it's just a paragraph basically. Could we renegotiate that franchise agreement in some way that held more teeth to it? The answer is it would probably take a lot of time and a lot of legal fees. But there are other avenues for challenging that. There's basically there are ways to sort of hold PG&E more accountable that are sort of represent bigger commitments. Like we could basically condemn their electrical system, saying that they're not performing they're not living up to their end of the agreement. We'd be in for a long sort of protracted legal battle with them, and they hire a lot of lawyers. So, we have some leverage. I mean, but probably the best leverage we have is sort of banding together and filing complaints with the CPUC, for example. If you've got 100 people complaining, it actually elevates things a little bit at the CPUC, and it makes a difference. But in terms of just sort of we have a decent relationship with our government relations people, but honestly, at the end of the day, we have very, they kind of, they're regulated by the CPUC and we have very little leverage over them. But that's sort of re-examining. Go ahead.
Could we make a bigger statement that it used to not be possible, as far as I knew, to get off the grid, to have solar and have it locally charging your battery? That seems to be changing. Could we just kind of band together to say, this isn't working for us? We want to have our own power, so to speak, in all the ways. I mean, is that something that would be worth trying to start?
Well, so what you're seeing more of now are microgrids. And even sort of microgrids that microgrids on behind 1 meter is becoming fairly common. Microgrids that actually among multiple meters, like community microgrids, are becoming more. They used to be almost unheard of, and sort of PG&E's resistance to them has weakened a bit. I've been trying to explore that, and so that's kind of it's a change in how PG&E kind of enforces the utility code. I mean, I'll put it this way. Well, they, in a sense, yes, they basically, I mean, they won't let you share power with your neighbors because of the utility code.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's it's pretty hard and fast. But they've been sort of giving ground on this, partly kind of spurred on by both the CPUC and the CEC. I mean, that's an area where I think we have opportunities to provide sort of little islands of resilience in town. It's a multi-year project. It's not a simple thing, but it's sort of it's not 6 years in a courtroom with PG&E. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, thank
It's-
you. I don't want to be the person who keeps us here till 10 o'clock, so I'm going to stop now, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other
Any other
questions, comments?
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks
Thank
for
you
doing
all.
this.
And I want to apologize. I've been missing meetings. I am your liaison and I have not been here at these meetings. I apologize for that. I'm going to try to make them as much as I can going forward. So I'm gonna keep watching here, but I will let you get back to your evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I would just, for the record, there are no external people, so there's
Oh.
no need to
No public comment.
poll for questions at this point. So,
Okay.
we'll keep moving along. Thank you.
Thank you.
So approval of minutes. Are there any suggested corrections to the minutes?
I would like to know who. at the-
Microphone closer, please.
I would like to know who in in the minutes, it didn't identify who brought up this idea of CERT, the Community Emergency Response Teams, that we liaison with them about sustainability. Who brought that up? It's not in the
I think it was
minutes.
you, Lovey. Wasn't it you?
No, I didn't.
Mhm.
It was you. Actually, it was you.
It was?
It was.
Yeah.
It was a good thing to bring up, and it's on the agenda for
Yeah, I
tonight.
know, I
So
know.
but you brought it
I
up.
don't remember doing that. I can't remember the.
You had a meeting or something with somebody.
You have
And you
more
brought
good
it
Yeah,
up.
I
ideas
did.
than
I
you
did
know.
have a meeting with 3 different people about this, so I can report something on it. But
We can attach, why don't we attach her name to
But
the minutes? the Item.
I can't believe that I brought that up.
Okay, well,
Okay,
Proud to say whoever brought that up was a genius.
no, whoever brought that up was a fool.
okay, but it will be listed as Loverine Taylor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would like to be referred to as Loverine in the minutes from now on.
Okay. All right, so if there are no other suggested changes or additions, then is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Moved by Jay, is there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. And anybody opposed? No. Okay, great. All right, so yes, Brandy is with us and Brandy gives a report at every one of our meetings, which is great. And there was a request from somebody in our committee or multiple people in our committee to hear more about some of these issues with a little bit of context and history, because we do have new members joining the committee. Anita's relatively new, Leslie's new. And so we're just going to try to pick one topic per month and just dive into it a little bit deeper to give people a background. So the topic for this week is the smart water meters, which is a big story and it's been going on a long time. So, and then Brandy has a whole set of items that she'll speak to for tonight. So Brandy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'll start with the overview of the smart water meter AMI pilot project with Cal Water, and then I'll move into the latest update. So in reviewing my notes, it was interesting to kind of go back and see the whole process, how far we've come and where we are today. So some of you may remember there was, some of you were on the Water Conservation Committee, but that grew out of the drought emergency of 2015. And in 2015, there were restrictions that were put on the customers in Portola Valley where you had to reduce your water use, I think by 30% versus your 2013 bills. And as you may know, there was no way to really know how much you were reducing your water use until you got your bill 30 days later. And so at the time, many of the jurisdictions around Portola Valley were installing smart water meters or already had. And so out of that drought emergency and the desire for the more timely data on what water usage was, we came up with the idea to implore Cal Water to install smart water meters. And when I look back at my notes, it looked like there was the idea for it ahead of the drought emergency. Rebecca, as you may know, has had several kind of catastrophic leaks, and in Portola Valley, with the landscapes that are so big and the extensive irrigation and the bunnies chewing it up, you could end up with a several $1,000 bill that you weren't expecting and didn't even know you had a leak until, again, 30 days later, or if depending on if you were looking at your bills or not. So that sort of was the impetus for the smart water meters. And in 2016, the town wrote a letter to the California Public Utilities Commission supporting Cal Water's plan for installing smart water meters. And it didn't get traction because of opposition from the Office of Ratepayer Advocates. And so through that initial process, the town learned how the process works with the CPUC, how these kinds of projects get adopted. And we learned that for investor-owned utilities, which Cal Water is, they have to go through a whole rate case with the CPUC. They have to present projects. Those projects are then discussed by the CPUC, and the Office of Ratepayer Advocates then has the opportunity to dispute those projects, because their job is literally to dispute anything that raises rates for the customers. And so they kind of start from opposing everything, and then you have to prove why it's a good project, and then the CPUC listens to that. And so the project that Cal Water proposed in 2016 to install smart water meters did not get approved. We didn't really understand the process until after that rate case went through the whole process. So then fast forward to 2018, we submitted another letter of support for Cal Water's AMI pilot project. And we just really fought at learning how we could get this done. And so in March 2019, the town decided to apply for party status with the CPUC in this rate case, in Cal Water's rate case, so that we could submit evidence and testimony to the CPUC and respond to their inquiries and the Office of Ratepayer Advocates inquiries. And so for 2 years, we did research. We supported and encouraged Cal Water to compile specific data that would show the benefit that smart water meters could have. We responded to inquiries from the CPUC and the Office of Ratepayer Advocates, and I ultimately ended up testifying in front of the CPUC at their office in San Francisco. And finally, in October of 2020, we received the decision from the CPUC that the AMI pilot project had been approved. And so that brings us to now. And I mean, I think that it's interesting that it's 2.5 years later after that's been approved, but here we are. So before I give an update on the current status of the AMI pilot project, are there any questions about that whole process or how we got here? And then I also would just like to say that Marianne Derwin, former council member and mayor, she led the fight from that aspect of it as a council member, as someone who is regionally connected, and she's no longer on the council, but she was instrumental in making all of that happen and being an advocate for the project. So anyhow, any questions on that part of it?
One thing I didn't quite understand, had Cal Water done this with other municipalities before, or
They so at the time that I think in when they submitted the rate case for 2018, they had only done it in one location in the Central Valley. And that was actually a sticking point because they didn't do something in the way that the Office of Ratepayer Advocates had wanted them to. And so throughout the hearings for that rate case that was coming up, they kept attaching it to that installation in the Central Valley, that you didn't do this, so we don't want you to do any more projects until you do what we told you we wanted you to do in that rate case. And so there was dispute over, you know, whether or not Cal Water had done what they wanted, but it was a sticking point.
So ultimately, the Office of the Ratepayers Advocacy required more data, or what was it that they finally allowed that it was useful? What is it that made them change their mind? Oops, I think you've frozen.
Yeah, it looks like maybe.
Hopefully I shut down some stuff to hopefully make it so I would stop freezing. Can you hear me now? Okay.
We can hear
Yes.
you, but your screen is frozen, but that's fine. Oh, you're back now.
Okay. So I would say we presented a lot of data. We actually calculated what the increase would be for the individual customers, and it was minuscule. I ultimately don't think that we convinced the Office of Ratepayer Advocates. It's just that the CPUC decided that to go forward with the project anyway. So it wasn't that we got them on board, it was in spite of them.
Because at the time we were in a drought, I take it, that would have been the major motivation.
No, they didn't. No, I don't. I think at the time, I don't think by the time it went to the hearing that we were in a catastrophic drought. But it's one of the most interesting processes that I've ever been through, because we kept presenting data. Like, for example, Rebecca, you wrote multiple testimonies where, you know, for the incremental cost, like dollars per month, like under $5 per month across all of these customers, that you could save an individual customer thousands of dollars. And it just, I've never seen anything like it, but the Office of Ratepayer Advocates was just opposed because it was any sort of rate increase across the board. And they didn't seem to care about the individual customer incurring a catastrophic financial burden from not having that data. So ultimately, it was the CPUC that decided that it was, you know, beneficial in spite of them, the Office of Ratepayer Advocates protesting.
I mean, that's pretty dramatic, because ultimately I would argue that maybe 80% of customers would benefit. Essentially, I would say 80% of people have leaks that they don't know about. I mean, they're not $1,000 leaks, obviously, otherwise they'd know about them. But these are leaks that, you know, a tiny dripping toilet or dripping pipe that adds up after a year. So pretty astonishing. The ratepayer advocacy doesn't seem too concerned with their role, but.
Well, and it's, yeah, I mean, there's huge contradictions between the CPUC's goals and the opposition from the Office of Ratepayer Advocates. So it was, like I said, it was an interesting process. And I mean, I submitted response after response. I actually had to submit a resume showing that I had credentials to even be submitting the responses. So it was very interesting how it gets done. And just, I guess I should say, for the benefit of the group, I forgot to mention this part, that this is specific to investor-owned utilities. So you may see municipalities that are close to us that get smart water meters installed, no problem, but it's because they own their own water utility. So City of Palo Alto has their own water utility, so they don't have to go through this process. Redwood City has their own water utility. Hillsborough does. So it's a completely different process that you have to go through if it's an investor-owned utility. So here we are. Any other questions before I give you? I spoke with Dawn today. I've had some email interactions with her, so I have an update on where we're at today, unless there's any other questions about the process.
Well, the obvious question is it too late for us to change to the way and the surrounding cities have it? That sounds like there's a much more functional process.
At this point, I don't think, I mean, owning your own, I don't know what that would take, but owning your own water utility is probably not something that the town has the capacity for. And I don't even know if it's possible at this point, given the franchise agreements and, all of that. So I think at this point, we're stuck with that process.
Okay. Looks like there aren't any other questions. So if you want to go ahead with the current status, that'd be great.
Okay. So the current status is that Cal Water they are still fighting staffing issues, but they have been they've started installing the smart water meters, and they are mainly installing them, or have been installing them in Los Trincos, and they anticipate they'll be done installing them there within the next month or two, and then they will begin to install them again in Portola Valley. I spoke with Dawn directly today and asked that we keep in touch on when they would start installing them in Portola Valley again, so that we, can start helping to educate folks about the Ion Water program and how to do that. We also had a discussion about Flume, and they will not be, despite what it said in the letter, or that they had to call, they will not be removing flumes. They will skip those, but there are definitely advantages for Cal Water and potentially the customer to not stick with their flume. Cal Water's plan is to do a retrofit on the meter so that they can get that smart water meter data, but that means that they're going with less than desirable technology for 20 years because of that rate case, they have to kind of amortize over that amount of years that they've put in for the rate case, whatever equipment they're purchasing. So I was imploring Dawn, for us to speak and to kind of understand the pros and cons of keeping the flume versus having it replaced. So if we wanted to do outreach to the community, we could. So that is basically the status. Dawn was dealing with some issues that were where she was unable to respond earlier this year and at the end of last year, but she's back now. So I will keep in close contact with her to understand when they're going to restart installing the smart water meters. So that is the update on that. Any questions from the committee?
Could you clarify a little bit more about this 20-year-old technology sort of thing, or that's being stuck? Because a flume that acts on a current customer's normal meter provides real-time water use. If Cal Water switches to, they have a choice of 2 different smart meters. If they switch to the digital one, then the flumes do not work. If they switch to I guess it's what you call the non-digital one, but it's still smart, then the flumes do work. So do you know if they have the option of installing either of those types?
They don't. And I thought, Rebecca, I'm sorry, but I thought we went through this already and we understood why they were going with one versus the other.
My only thought is that it's due to the way they presented their rate case that specified a specific Badger meter.
Why don't, so
Because,
I,
Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense because I have the other smart meter installed at my home and it works beautifully with my Flume and I have real time in both cases. So as I told Dawn, they could very easily, for people who want the Flume, install the other Badger smart meter, which they've done in the past because that's what they ran originally with their trial 10 years ago, which is mine. I still have mine.
So I know we went through this, Rebecca. I know we came to a conclusion. I will talk with Dawn again and I will get the specifics, the technical specifics of why they're going with the one that doesn't work with the Flume. I know there's reasons, and I believe that they're beyond just what they spec'd out with the rate case. I think it has to do with the longevity of the equipment. But I will get the specific technical specifications of that. And
I definitely know that it was an issue with my kind that it has an integral lithium battery inside to handle the communication to the cell tower, and it cannot be changed. So once it dies, then the whole meter has to be changed out. So it could be that is their concern. So I think it had a 10-year battery life as opposed to 20 years. So that could very well be the issue.
okay.
But definitely when you speak with her, if you could clarify that and then also clarify whether Badger is planning to provide some type of consumer-friendly access to its smart meter. That would negate the need for the Flume if it provided that, at customer's expense, if a customer wanted that real time as opposed to every 4 hours and more frequent weekend use, because sometimes we have leaks on weekends more frequently than once a day. So then, so yeah, so if you could clarify with her whether she's been in communication at all with Badger to see if they're planning to offer some type of linkage that customers could buy into. I mean, it's actually a revenue possibility for Badger, so.
Yep, will do. I will ask those 2 questions and I probably submit them to the committee in writing so that we're all on the same page.
So,
Brandy, I
Go ahead.
didn't understand what you were saying the downside was of opting out and using a Flume instead.
I was saying that it doesn't, I don't completely understand, and so I'm going to work with Dawn to understand what the pros and the cons are of staying with the Flume for both the customer and for Cal Water.
Okay. I mean, because that would be my inclination, this is one example, to keep the Flume instead of the Badger lithium frequent.
Okay, I can't hear you guys. I'm sorry. It's
I think you're gonna have to speak up.
Sorry, I was just saying, just as one example, that would be my inclination to just opt out and keep my Flume since I have the real time.
yeah, and I guess I hope that the committee understands that having data 4 times or every 4 hours is preferable to not having, to only having data every 30 days. And so it's going to be, we're bifurcating, I'm hoping for the support of the committee as we bring this out so that we don't
Yes, for
don't
sure.
undermine
Cal
right.
Because Water's new meter is it's more than incremental. It's just a massive improvement over the existing situation. No question about it. Ignoring
and-
people who chose to go on the
And we need to, I think we need, there are definitely there are definitely people who have a higher interest in that real-time data, who are more technical and who can do that. But, having spent 14 years working for the town, there are also a lot of people who we want to be able to simply provide the data without having them do more or having a non-consistent message so they get confused. So but I will definitely go back to Dawn and I will answer these questions and I will submit them to Scott in writing so that we have them to refer back to. If that sounds like a good plan forward.
Yeah, that sounds good. If there aren't any other questions or comments from our committee, there is one person with a hand up. So let me try to unmute. Christy, let's see. Mute, unmute. Well,
Thank you.
yeah, go ahead. And if you could just take 3 minutes maximum, we're trying to, keep the meeting on schedule.
Sure.
Thanks.
I just wanted to comment that I believe Alpine Swim and Tennis has a smart meter out front. Is that correct, Brandy?
I don't know. Utility data is private and I don't know if I don't know what you're referring to specifically, but.
Okay, I live across the street and I noticed that it had the word smart meter on it. And during the storms, water was coming out of it, meaning out of the top. So it was losing water and then therefore it would be inaccurate. And so I did call the president of the club, letting him know that that occurred. And he seemed confused as to what it was. He didn't know much about the smart meter. And I could read you what he said, but it is real important that if during a storm they're overflowing in key areas, that's a problem because they would get charged too much. So I'm wondering if you can ask about that and have them specifically look at the smart meter at Alpine Swim and Tennis, which is it's right by the crosswalk.
Certainly, will do.
Yeah, I have a feeling during the 4 storms, they were overcharged. I also do have a question. I'm fascinated that some of these cities have their own utility for water. I believe we should know what the comparison is, although I like checking, leaks and, I did have a leak at a place and it was helpful that, I got the phone call and we stopped the leak. So I'm all for that. I am interested in what is the price difference of doing it, the smart meters versus having your own utility, and I was surprised to hear 4 or 5 cities are doing their own, and what that process would be and what the comparison would be. So is there any way we can get a report on that?
Grab a shovel.
That's something that that's not within my purview. You can request to the council that if they want to do that study. But from what I know about how water rights work and the current status of it regionally, I think that that's probably not the best use of staff resources at this time. But you can certainly, I'm not allowed to self-deploy to do a report like that. And it's out of my area of expertise. So if that's something that you think is valuable, you can definitely write a letter to the council and or to Howard, the interim town manager. But that's out of my area of expertise.
Okay, so how would we get the response on the overflow of the smart meters?
Are we sure it's a smart meter and not a backflow prevent device? And are we sure it wasn't just installed somehow improperly?
That's what I'm wondering, if it needs to be worked on, and it said smart meter on it. So
it seems to me that Alpine Hills, who owns that account, needs to talk to their water service provider, Cal Water, directly.
Yeah, otherwise we're playing telephone tag by transmitting information that we've heard from you to Cal Water. I think the customer has to engage Cal Water. So you could encourage them to do that.
Okay.
I think we'll need to move on at this point. Brandy gives a report every time on a set of topics, sometimes more or less on each, but do you want to go through the rest of the items for us?
Sure, I would be happy to. So with a couple of the items, I'm going to preface this by saying that, as you may know, the town is going through some staffing transitions, and my role at the town at this time, I'm doing a lot of onboarding and offboarding and a lot of IT stuff. So some of my attention is focused on that stuff while not forgetting about these things, but some of them I have not been able to allocate as much time to. So with SB 1383, or sorry, the Climate Action Plan. So that we are continuing to make progress on, but two things with that. I believe that the council has put that, postponed that on the agenda for either in the late summer or early fall. And so we will be working on that throughout the summer. The intern who has been helping me is also in a study abroad program right now. So they will return in the early summer, and I will be utilizing them again to help me with that. For SB 1383, we are continuing to make progress on putting the data into the Recyclist program that we're using for both compliance for commercial as well as our procurement. And so we're making progress on that. We're also working with Green Waste, as I mentioned, to understand what the impact of some of the additional regulations going into effect in July will be. And let's see. Oh, and the regional programs that we're participating in, there's a compost education program as well as a food waste program. Those are continuing on, and we have used grant funds, as you may remember, to participate in some of those. So we'll be doing some grant reporting for those. Green building amendments and electrification of existing buildings. We addressed the latest development in that, which is a little disheartening with Jeff when he first came on. I will also say, aside from that, that I continue to work with the building inspector as well as staff to develop checklists and implementation documents to implement those amendments. And the disposable foodware ordinance, that is currently on hold. And then the green waste interactions, including the home energy analytics, home intel, insert in future green waste mailings. So I spoke with Jay individually about the concerns with the green waste service, and I have reached out to my contacts at Green Waste, and I will be meeting with them next Wednesday to discuss those specific service concerns. I have also asked them for the possibility of the tour of the materials recovery facility as well as the best compost facility, which is in Gilroy, and they are on board with giving us a tour of both of those places. And so they asked me to figure out which dates in June or July may work for the committee to do that. They said that it would be about a 3.5 to 4 hour kind of process to tour both of those places. And it would likely start in the morning because in June or July, as the day goes on, the MRF gets a little ripe, yes. That I think a lot of positive things with that. So I will look to the committee to maybe, I don't know how you all would like to decide about a tour date, or I mean, if there's things that you would like if you can give me a couple of potential dates in those months, or if you want to, I know you can't talk amongst yourselves. So if in May, maybe I can work with Scott and Jay to come up with a couple of dates and we can propose them to the committee in May. I've also asked them how many people they can accommodate on that tour, so we can see if there are folks we can take in addition to the committee. Perhaps there are council members that want to go on that tour as well. So I will have more information than that, or more information on that later, but I would request your guidance in figuring out how to come up with some dates
Did,
for green waste.
did they suggest that it could be any day of the week, or do they have a particular few dates in July, August that would work for them? Because that may be
They said June or July, and they did not say specific dates. But one question I had for the committee is whether or not, like, that sometimes there's an opportunity to see our Portola Valley's waste being processed, and so I wondered if it was of interest to the committee to actually go there on a day where our waste is coming there.
Sounds great.
Sure, that would be
Mhm.
all the more real and personal.
Enlightening.
Yeah, well, so yeah, if right, if you could figure out from them which dates that would be. Is that the day the trash is collected, or it's probably not, right? It's several days later.
No, I think it's the day. I mean, so I think that most of our trash collection, I think most of the residential trash collection happens on Tuesday.
On Thursday.
On Thursday, okay.
Ours is Tuesday.
Right.
Okay, so maybe I'm
Monday.
wrong. So never
Okay,
mind. So maybe any day of the week. And
Yeah.
they said the maximum number of people would be 7, and if they do the 2 tours, maximum number of people would be 7. If they do the MRF tour, they can accommodate up to 13. So usually we do the MRF tour first and then go to ZBest. So maybe, we can do up to 13 for the MRF tour and then go, to Gilroy with 7.
What were the?
And then the MRF is the materials recovery facility. And that's where all the waste goes to be processed. So that's where the you see the extensive recycling processing. You see that the waste go on the main line first, where they pick out the big pieces. So that's where most of the processing happens, and then they take the organics and anything that can be, any trash that can be composted to ZBest, and they compost it there. And that's in Gilroy.
So with regard to picking a date, are we, given Brown Act rules, are we allowed to have a doodle poll among the members of the committee where we, the only purpose of the doodle poll is to pick a date? Is that allowed? Because that would be the best way to do this.
Agreed. I think it would be the same as if we did that for a meeting, but why don't I do this, Scott? I'll just make sure with,
And
I'll find out.
You can probably do it.
Yeah, I think I could do it. So I will ask them what are the main days when the waste gets processed from Portola Valley, the residential waste, and then I will just make sure that I can do a doodle poll, and then
Yeah, if you do a doodle poll, then it's not the committee talking among itself. It's each one of us as individuals responding to your poll. Yeah.
Yep, and I can make it closed so you can't see other people's responses. And then, there are, I know, and just in case there is the additional question of you all going on a tour, there are, as long as you don't discuss business, it's fine, committee business, and we can figure out how to deal with that. But we've dealt with it before. It's, there's just things that we have to do to make sure that we comply with the Brown Act.
All right. Okay, I would just ask, there's, I think, one other person who joined us from the public. If anybody from the public has a question or comment about items that we're discussing, just please use the raising the hand icon, and I'll glance over at that periodically, and we'll try to slot that in. I don't see anyone now, so with that, thank you, Brandy. Appreciate that. Update.
Oh, I did forget one thing. I'm sorry. I skipped over the including the HEA insert in future green waste millings. I'm looking into that actively, and I will report back once I know. So it's kind of going to be a 2-part. do we have permission from, within the town to do it? And secondarily, is Green Waste still on board with doing it? It's been several years. So I'm sort of doing phase one because there's no point in asking Green Waste if the answer is no. So I will report back on that as well.
Great, thank you. So I think looks like we can move on to the next topic. The next topic is public service announcements, our continuing set of what we issue on PV Forum and elsewhere. So I guess Anita has authored one on plastics, and that's scheduled to go out next week. So Carrie Chen, the communications person for the town, will send that out on PV Forum, social media, and in the town newsletter. So we've got quite a stream of these coming out. So I guess we need to decide what comes next. And we concluded previously that we wouldn't try to schedule it in advance. We would just see what's timely and who has bandwidth to prepare something and submit and put something out. I know there was the thing that Jay and Rebecca were working on related to aspects of electrification, right? Jay, you were looking at transportation.
Yeah, I wrote up a whole 4-page EV thing that's pretty much ready. I'll just have a couple people look at it.
Oh, great. We could should we do that next? And Rebecca, did you have something that you wanted to do yet?
The recirculating.
I put out something
already
on
out.
the recirculating.
Yeah,
pumps.
that was great. I mean, there was also the discussion of, I think you had said you might want to do something on electrification, but maybe you still have bandwidth to do that, or?
I don't have bandwidth in the next, what month is this? April, May, June, July. I don't have bandwidth in next.
Okay, so what, unless there's some other topic being offered, maybe Jay's would be a good one to go with next.
For May.
Yes,
Great.
perfect. All right,
So I'll send it to just a couple of you guys to take a look at.
No more than 2.
Of course.
no more than
A
two.
couple.
Actually, it could be, oh yeah, no more than two, that's right. Uh-huh. Okay,
Do we want to line someone up for June though, just so that people can already kind of think about something?
good idea. Are there any
Something for June?
Mhm.
microphone? You need to be closer.
I just noticed that I subscribe to a newsletter that came out for 8 weeks from Sunset Magazine about drought gardening. And I thought that would be might be a good thing to link. It's done. The last one was Wednesday, and it was rain gardens, how to set up a rain garden. They're nice articles,
Mhm.
and they're online. That maybe we could link into that at some point.
No, that sounds like a good one.
And
Summer.
that might do well for the summer.
Mhm.
Summer's also a big travel time, and I think statistically, the biggest carbon footprint for many people in our town is going to be air travel. And I think it's maybe apropos to discuss that. If anyone's interested, but that's sensitive.
But that's not in your transportation one for May.
No, I'm just doing EVs.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to work on one related to air travel, and I guess the recommendation would be offsets, right? I mean, travel less is not
Don't
gonna
do it.
Yeah, that's not gonna go over.
But that's like the whole problem, right? The things that we actually need to do, everyone's like, well, I don't want to do that. I just want to buy some new tech. Well, the solution is to do things that are not,
Yeah, that's
excuse me,
true.
that are not convenient. And if anybody should
That's-
advocate for those, it should be us advocating for those. And that's
A bus
less
or
travel
train.
and it's less buying stuff. which
So
people
I
like to
don't
do.
think I should be writing one because I'm going to be going overseas starting on May 1st, and that just seems disingenuous.
Well,
to-
but you know that, but everybody in this town, many people travel, but if you're like, oh, you know what, I'm bored, I'm gonna go to Barbados
Mhm.
for 18 hours. You
Yeah.
know, that's the kind of thing that is irresponsible, you know? taking a vacation once a year with your family or twice a year or
Right.
traveling, that's different. But the idea is that it's something that we should think about and not do automatically and feel like we're entitled to do it.
Mhm. I totally agree with you. I'd be happy to try to write something.
I'm not
sure.
telling anybody right because I agree it's a sensitive topic in
Yeah,
this town.
that's a tricky one. Yeah, I'm game to try to write it, particularly given that I'm going on a trip. I can reflect on that and,
And I'm missing the July meeting because I'll be on the East Coast. Okay.
Oh,
But I
okay.
mean, just writing about the, bringing awareness to how much greenhouse gases are emitted by air travel, I think is a good thing to do. We don't
Yes.
have to be judgmental or preachy about do not travel and always take Amtrak or Greyhound bus, but I mean, just telling people this is likely your largest greenhouse
Yeah.
gas emission, one of your largest potentially. So
Yeah.
I think
I
it's
think
helpful to
it's
do
good
that,
and-
and there aren't too many solutions except don't do it, or the offsets, which are not necessarily that effective.
Is it appropriate to, so I've just been having good conversation about, visibility for nonprofit. This afternoon, it was really good PR guy. Oh, sorry. So good conversation this afternoon with a friend who's a very good PR guy about how you get people to realize that we're not out of hope. I mean, right, it's to educate people without terrifying them, but to get their attention. It's the kind of thing I do, right? It's like, okay, there are actual solutions people are working hard on. They need support. Is that an appropriate thing? You can tell there's self-interest here. I run a nonprofit that desperately needs some funding. Is that an inappropriate type of message to put out if I'm not making it specifically about me? Things like the ice melt is, critical lever point, right? Methane emissions, there are, so the people who still want their natural gas or their unnatural gas, as more and more people are calling it, in their homes. This is one of the most critical short-term forces we have, and we don't have that many years left. Are these kinds of messages appropriate to work on? That's the kind of thing I would be able to get my passion behind.
Well, I think, broadly, I think, yes. I mean, Jay wrote a really good one on tipping points, right? So I think, promoting a particular technology or a particular solution may be problematic sometimes, but I think if you have what you think of as possible topics along the lines of what we're doing on in the town distribution list, we should hear them and then decide whether they make sense. But to me, those ones that you talked about are they're fair game, they're in scope.
Leslie, are you suggesting new technologies? So just sort of tell people about new technologies that are coming down the pike, or are you suggesting more about writing about the issue of how to, encourage people to get more involved, whether it's by funding or by just involvement?
Both are so high in my mind because, I keep coming back to this statement that I want to put in writing. I think I put it in the LinkedIn post today about the AGU's new position statement on, research on these things. And it's like, and we need to act like our lives depend on it, right? And nobody really is. or very few.
Messaging, essentially.
Yeah, that is a hugely important thing. But you think about somebody in town like Armin Nickerman, right? Working on marine cloud brightening, one of the best options I think we have is a climate intervention. And he and across the pond in the UK, Stephen Salter, both work on different aspects of this, but it's one of the most underfunded things that's out there, and yet one of the most promising. So I don't know whether you welcome, things like that. For sure. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think if, now that you know what we're doing, it maybe next time if you could come with an idea or two of what you might like to write and put out, we can discuss that. Yeah.
I think it's been nice that it's totally an opportunity for people to do something personal. So for each person to do something that they're good at, that they're passionate about, rather than it being an assignment, So I think everybody has something, whether it's beavers or um,
Jay, I have to send you the same ones I send Lovey, the TikToks of Beaver.
Well, they will take the weapons.
This all fits in though with the whole idea that the more personal the message, the more it resonates with people. You know, you can give them all the data, all the curves, all the percentages, you know, everything. But what really motivates people is personal experience and social pressure,
And suggestions.
social
How
pressure.
they get- Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and, you know, okay, your flight, you know, keep a diary and you feel a little guilty maybe about flying and you say that. I mean, you're aware of what you're doing, but you have to do it. And that's what everybody has to do. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll get into a turbulence thing and you can bring in the article that says there's going to be a lot more air turbulence because of climate change.
you can always say you did.
You can bring that aspect in.
Okay. All right.
Wear your
Question?
seatbelt.
Yeah, sure.
Quick question. Have we done anything on food waste? As far as articles?
We have not.
Okay.
So
it's
that
like
would be a
later in the
great
year.
one. Yeah.
And would it be appropriate to have like Laura Stack contribute to it, or even she might want to be assigned it? But I could talk. to
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, I think,
Laura, either co-write it or.
absolutely. Yeah. I think as long as one of us is involved in it
Okay.
in some manner and it's a message that the committee feels is a
Mhm.
good one
Okay.
to send out, then
Alright.
yes.
There's also regenerative agriculture. It's kind of a general topic. I don't know that there's anything, well, there might be. Anyway, it's a topic we might want to visit later in the year because it's, Valley Pres is putting on, is showing 2040 on Sunday, by the way. I probably mentioned that at the beginning of the morning, beginning of the meeting. And if anybody's welcome to come, it's like it's like noon to 2 on Sunday. And the topic of 2040 is, you know, essentially a large part of it is talks about regenerative agriculture and how it can save soil and save carbon,
Mhm.
sequester carbon. It's a very hopeful movie, and it's also really appropriate for kids. What time?
Okay.
Noon to 2. You know, I wonder if what the Tomcat Pat Taylor has this wonderful ranch, regenerative ranch, just towards the ocean. Yeah. And she's a brilliant speaker.
Yes, she's
Yeah.
in the movie.
Oh,
I
that
might be
would be
getting
good.
my
Movies. We've watched a couple, but I think she's in this one. And the farm is the one in Half Moon Bay, right? Yeah. Because I contacted them to see if they do tours, and they don't. But yeah. But yeah, she has been a guest speaker, and she just is brilliant.
Okay, great. We'll move on. Oh, no, there's a hand up. Let's see. Rita Combs has a hand up. Yeah, Rita, if you'd like to unmute, and we're just asking people to speak for no more than 3 minutes.
Well,
please
I'll be
just-
quick. I'll be
Sure.
quick. I'm on the board at Hidden Villa in Los Altos Hills, and we
Right.
do regenerative agriculture. We have a video online, and you can always come and volunteer and learn about it. I won't talk about it much, but there's lots of information on the website, hiddenvilla.org, or give me a call next week and I'll take you on a tour, and you'll get to see an area that was just, you know, flooded with salt water, I think in the early 70s. And now the best strawberries and eggplant you ever had are grown there.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you. That's great. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, possibility of adding new members. So we have reached our capacity for our charter of 7 members. Our charter used to be 9 members, and we actually asked town council to reduce it to 7 because we were having issues or potential issues with constituting a quorum at meetings. And so now we have all 7 slots filled. There's one person that I had interacted with previously who expressed interest the willingness to be on the committee, somebody who didn't have the time to do that previously, somebody who has a background that seems reasonable for joining the committee. And so I wanted to bring it up as a possibility. I guess my own view is that this is a good number, and maybe, you know, if we extended we'd have to extend the charter to 9 people, where a quorum is then 5.
Has to be an odd number.
It has to be an odd number so that a quorum is a, you know, definite. Yeah, actually,
I highly recommend sticking with an odd number, because if you have 8, you have to have 5 for quorum.
right.
And it's a lot. Your chances, you're going to encounter more quorum issues with an even number than an odd number, all else equal.
Yeah, right. So, so we could go up to 9. We could add, you know, consider adding this person. We probably then are looking for another person, because we need, you know, we ideally would have the full 9 places filled. I personally think it would be good to wait and maybe draw this I mean, you know, there's a lot of coming and going of people, and so if there's an interested community member, maybe, you know, 6 months from now, a year from now, if one of us decides we need to leave the committee, that would be an opportunity. But I wanted to bring it up and see if others have a different view. Maybe we ought to have more people, and we ought to really push for more a membership drive still, or how to think about it.
Is there something not currently covered that needs to be covered?
That's a great question in terms of topics. I think we'd have to reflect on that. I mean, we do cover a pretty broad set of things right now, those of us who are members.
I'd also add that anybody can come to our meetings and can participate in any of our activities, can, you know, join in with any member on a subcommittee to, you know, to help out. They don't actually have to be an official member. If they wouldn't be allowed to vote on certain things, but we don't really do too much voting. So if someone's interested, I would encourage them to come to the meeting and start attending it and see if this is really something that they might be interested in. And nothing prevents them from participating, even though they're not
Right.
on the committee.
Yeah, right. Good. Other thoughts? Okay, but it doesn't sound like there's a strong impetus among us to become larger, seek new members, change the charter to be 9. Is that a correct statement? I don't see
Correct.
it. That's correct. Okay, correct.
Not hearing of pressing need.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll speak with this person. It's Diane Schrader, in case anybody knows her. She lives in Ladera and is involved in aspects of finance for net zero homes. So it seems like a quite relevant topic. So
You know, if we do get involved in the housing element, maybe she's got a useful background.
yeah, well, we have been involved in the housing element. I don't, and although, well, we do allow Ladera residents to be part of our committee. That's correct, isn't it, Jeff?
We have. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. I think as far as I know, yes. I think we've allowed people from the sphere of influence to serve on committees. Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, and our committee really is a role of making recommendations to town council. So, yeah, but so she could be a member.
And the downside of increasing that you see is just the quorum issue?
Primarily the quorum issue, you know, jumping up by 2 and then really ideally needing to fill both of those slots.
If the charter was 9, but at some point in time, we only had, say, 7, would
Well, it's okay to only have 7, but if the charter's 9, the quorum requirement, it goes up to 5. And right now we have a quorum requirement of 4 because of the charter being only 7. So it, it just makes it a bit harder. I don't hear a strong, I don't hear a strong push to increase our size and bring in new members. But I'll speak to her and invite her to come join us and if she does and we can just sort of take it from there. Okay. Next item, final planning for I think we did put in the correct term for this time, the Portola Valley Wildfire Preparedness Fair, which is soon. It's on Saturday. I sent around to everyone, and maybe not to you, but I'm not sure, Leslie, the guidance from Jennifer Hammer about arrival time for those who intend to staff one of the tables. We will have a table there. I forwarded it. It was like 5 bullet items, included the arrival times. Yeah, they're opening the doors at 8:30. They recommend that we be there by 9. They're asking that people park at the school, what is it called? Wood. The school that's right across the street from town center. The windmill school. They're asking people to park at the windmill school. They're asking actually for each committee to have no more than 1 car at the windmill school and have all other cars at the Priory, which is quite a distance from here. Yeah, which to me sounds like a logistical headache. So I can appreciate why they want to create as many open parking spots as possible for visitors to the fair. But anyway, so question, who is planning to be there to help staff the table?
I could help, but
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
I have a meeting for our Himalaya Melt Working Group that is called for 7:30 that morning. So, I'll probably be busy until 8:30.
That's fine. I mean, I think, there are a few of us need to be there to set it up, but then others can be coming and going. Ronnie, I thought you were going to do the Emporia thing, right?
Oh, I was,
Or were you imagining that?
I'm more of a coming and going. I won't be there at the beginning, but I
Okay.
can come by later.
So,
Emporia thing, I haven't been able to get it installed on the Wi-Fi. So
interesting.
we can still hand them out, but I don't know.
Interesting. So the Wi-Fi, even though we can get on it with our laptops, has not been something you've been able to use to, well, maybe there are some firewall issues. That sounds likely. Okay. Can one use a Wi-Fi hotspot?
Maybe.
Okay.
Sorry,
So
sorry, Scott, Ronnie, could you mention your issue again? I'm sorry.
I was trying to install the Emporia View smart plug on the Wi-Fi network here, but I wasn't able to do that.
At Town Center.
Yeah.
Well, I routinely have trouble just connecting with my computer, so it could be that.
but you did it successfully at home, right? And I did it easily at home. And so, well, we'll bring the devices, and I mean, I think if we can't get it to work on the network that is here, then we'll just not do that part of it. I mean, we'll still have the the backup power unit, and we'll still have the induction cooktop, and we'll have all the books, and we'll have these items, these Emporia smart plugs as giveaways for the first 25 people coming to our table. So. All right. So, excuse me. Who would be arriving at 8:30 or 9? I will. Okay. Rebecca.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. So I think that's enough of us. We have, in terms of supplies, we have the banner for the table. Lovey has books, which we have here. We can go take a look
I'd
at.
like you to look at the books that are
Maybe we
there.
should do that at the end. Otherwise, we're going
Yeah,
to
no,
does that
agree.
make sense?
Could we get 2 banners?
We have
Could
2
get-
banners.
Could we
I
do
was
that?
going to unfurl them, but I'll do that. We could do that also at the end. Look at the banners and the books.
Are we giving away books or?
We, are you bringing anything?
I don't know, am I?
Maybe not. I mean, I think we have enough. We have the induction cooktop, the backup power loaner unit, the books.
I could bring those little things that we had put in the past where you fill out what you're planning to do.
I think those would be great. Yeah, yeah. But I think mainly it's us being there and talking to people about the items on the table, plus, you know, what our committee does and just the topic in general. So I think it's good enough.
And the flyers, the battery flyers,
Battery flyers. Oh, about,
together for emergency.
about,
use.
oh, okay, yeah.
Have those in my,
You have a bunch of them printed?
still.
Okay.
yes, there's tons.
Okay,
We
yeah,
didn't
so
hand out that
if
many
you can
yet.
bring those items, and even if you can't stay at the event, that'd be great to have at the table. So I'll plan to be there at 8:30, and yeah, Ronnie, if you can come for a while, that's great, but yeah, I think we've got it, sounds like we've got it covered.
Who has the Emporia? You have the devices that were handed out?
I have all the ones that we're gonna give away, yeah.
Oh, did you like photocopy the?
I did,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, photocopied the QR code and everything so people can, there's one per item. What else? Lovey needs there are quite a few books. There are probably 15 books. Does anybody have a rack that the books could go on? Or something like that? I mean, ideally it would sit on the table.
I just don't want to use the whole table.
Yeah, we're gonna have to compact them because we've got the cooktop and the loaner, the power unit.
I have a step stool, an IKEA step stool that, you know, you could put 3 books here and 2 books here and maybe 1 book here. If somebody has something like that.
The step stool is how wide?
Um,
Yeah,
Let me just bring some bookends. and just line them up.
maybe that's better. Yeah, because maybe we'd have two of them out on the table. The ones that we really think are hit the mark in terms of
The forest fire on the
yeah,
cover.
exactly. Those would be the ones out on the table, and then the others in sort of a bookshelf mode.
You can put them on the cooktop and demonstrate that it's safe.
You tested that out? I'm not
Nope.
convinced.
Okay, anything else we need to be ready for related to the event? Okay. Brandy has a hand up.
Oh, I'm not sure if this is a good solution, but we do have a couple of little bamboo rack things that we used to use for flyers that are actually in the closet in the schoolhouse. I don't think your key works, but I could reach out to Carrie and ask her if she could, you know, put them in the school out from that closet if you guys wanted to use them for the books.
Well, I'm actually thinking, I mean, I don't know whether it's a 6-foot table or an 8-foot table, it's going to be really crowded. And so I think I really like the idea of like 2 or 3 books out showing covers and the rest in the library format. Otherwise, this bamboo thing would have to be on top of the table potentially. If the tables are
No, it's it stands up alone. It's a standalone thing.
I know, but where does it go then? Because, you know, if the tables are above, well, then it's blocking people's view of everything else on the table.
Yeah, that's
Go
fine.
Inside and extending the table, if we got a table on the end.
Well, exactly.
Are we outside or
I like the
inside?
bookends idea.
Yeah, I think that's a full. Well, okay, Brandy, do you know whether it's meant for flyers? Is it got enough depth for books?
I think so. I mean, maybe after the meeting you can, I don't think your key works in that closet, but maybe after the meeting you could see it's the one.
Ronnie is
if
going
you're-
to the closet and he's
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overcomplicate things, but it's the one on the left, if you're looking back towards the front door, it's the one on the left.
Okay, One on the left. Okay, well, we'll check it out, but okay, yes, I guess, yes, we would like to have it. And we can have it there and use it or not, depending upon how it fits. So if we can't get into the closet now, I guess it would be Carrie who would. It does not fit the closet. It does not work. Okay, so.
I'll
would you-
reach out to somebody tomorrow and see if they can just bring them out of the closet into the room, and then you guys can get them out of there.
Okay.
If that sounds
I
Okay.
had one other question for you, Brandy.
okay.
Sitting in my entryway for years now, since the last Earth Day, is that huge box of all the stuff that we've taken in the past, our Earth Day stuff and, flyers and whatnot. And I would love to have it back over at Town Center. So is there any way, or should I just drop it off during the week with Carrie or?
Yeah, just drop it. You can just drop it off and ask whoever's there to put it in the radio room. I've been coming about every other week, so if you do that, I can just deal with it once I when I'm
Has to
there.
Put it in which room?
The radio room.
Radio
Yep.
room. Okay.
Radio room.
Okay.
That's my like little adopted corner when I'm there. So
Great. Okay.
sorry that's been in your entryway for all that time.
My fault for not taking care of it and bringing it back.
Brandy, I might want to meet Carrie here to look at the bookshelf because my plan was to give the key to the schoolhouse to Jay as the vice chair. He's going to run the meeting next month.
Okay.
So I would be then relinquishing the key this evening. So if I could just meet.
I can pick up the key before next month's meeting
Okay.
from her in the office, the same as we did when we set up for the.
Well, I think this is the key. I have the key.
But if you still need to use it for this
I don't-
Saturday when I'm not going to be here, then I can just pick it up
guess-
in the office.
Pick up another one. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we're a little, it's going to be a lengthy meeting, I guess, but we have another number of other items. So, and some of them have to be dealt with tonight. The ones that have to be dealt with tonight, and maybe we should just do those and not anything else. The item E, the possibility of converting a number of committees into ones that, while they still would have plenty of rules about public access and stuff, they would not formally be Brown Act committees. And so we would not need to have a quorum. Okay. That's one item that on which they need feedback before our next meeting. And the second one is budget request to town council for 23-24. We've been asked to turn that in prior to our May meeting. So how do people feel about the possibility of doing those two and deferring the discussion of the library loaner stuff and the CERT engagement process until next time? I'm just sensitive about the time. Does that make sense to people? Okay, let's try to do that. Do we need a motion for that? Maybe we do. Somebody want to move that we defer those two items till next time?
I'll move.
I second.
All those in favor of deferring those items? Aye. Opposed? Okay. The possibility of converting a number of committees to this new form. This was spearheaded by Craig Taylor and Sarah Wernikoff. They had a sort of committee of committee meetings that I attended, and Rebecca, I think you were there too. So in fact, for the way in which Portola Valley uses its committees, for 90% of that or more, they're advisory. Their function is advisory. And so if they're not decision-making bodies, if the committees are not decision-making bodies, it's not necessary to attach the Brown Act requirements to every single committee in Portola Valley. So what determines whether a committee is a Brown Act committee or not is whether the members of the committee are elected or voted on by the town council. So if the full town council votes on Leslie joining the committee, then our committee is essentially an extension of the town council, which also must strictly follow the Brown Act rules. If, on the other hand, the town council had a subcommittee of maybe 2 of their members who would be the ones to help decide, together with me, for example, decide that Leslie would be a good person to have on the committee, and then decide to have Leslie join the committee, then technically our committee would no longer have to be one that abided by formally all the Brown Act requirements. I would just say, that this is not an effort to make committees, back room, cigar smoke, closed to the public. This is an effort to release us from some of the few rules that are really problematic and onerous, like, okay, so somebody's traveling and they're in Japan and they want to join the meeting. They can't join the meeting now unless their Japanese hotel room is open to the public, wheelchair accessible, and advertised as a place where Portola Valley residents can go to participate in the meeting if they happen to be in Japan at that time.
I think
So-
anyone can
Public,
go.
the public,
the public.
all the public.
Oh, the
not
whole
just the
public, sorry,
residents.
not just Portola Valley, but the world. So, there are some things inherited with the Brown Act that don't really make sense for us as a committee whose role is really to advise the town council as opposed to vote on things that are binding for the town. So the question is, and they talk about like 3 different levels of this. One level is the current structure, which is, we're Brown Act entities. We have to follow it to the letter of the law. A second version would be there's a different mechanism to appoint members. And so strictly speaking, we don't have to follow the Brown Act. However, there would be a set of rules about how committees are expected to function that would include issuing agendas in advance, having meetings open to the public, having minutes, all the rest of it. Basically, the transparency items would still be there, right? But those few rules that are really problematic, like the quorum, if there happened to be 3 of us, we could still have a meeting, we could still take votes, we could still do our job. And then there was a third version, which was even more informal, which was really, and I'm not sure Craig or Sarah characterized it fully. I think there is a table they made, but it's much looser and not necessarily with all the same kind of transparency rules and everything else. I think the sense of the Committee of Committees was that if we could jump to that middle one, which I just spent most of the time describing, that would be great. And so we need to give feedback to the Committee of Committees about our sense of that, and how do we feel about such a change?
What's the downside of that?
I don't think for us I don't think there is a downside, actually. Jeff, are you on, and do you see any
Yeah.
downside?
I mean, I don't think it affects your business very much. The downside from my perspective is just, you being a slightly less, I mean, your requirements in terms of transparency are a little smaller. And so it's sort of, I guess the biggest worry for me would be that, if you have a budget and you're spending town money, are you, do 3 people go off and do something without any public input? And so, we have to keep watching, of course, but it's sort of, I think I'd say that would be my biggest the biggest concern I've been coached to have would be that. But I think from your perspective, I think you advise us just as you would normally. You would have a budget for the events like your partner events that you organize. I don't think it changes your business a whole lot. except for having to relieving you of the quorum requirements and some of the reporting and just posting and organizing and posting agendas before meetings ends up being a lot of work for staff as well. So
We just talked about how the biggest barrier to adding members is increasing the quorum requirement, and this
Right.
eliminates that. So I think that's a very nice thing.
And being able to attend meetings by Zoom if we're sick or
Yeah.
if we're traveling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Scott, you can still be here for the next meeting.
But he can't unlock the door.
I could, although I don't think this change will get implemented by then. So perhaps I won't have to, or I won't be able to. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead.
Is it already like a done deal that committees have this option and they're saying if we want it or not, or we're just saying that we're in support of?
I think there's probably there are details still to be worked out by town council in terms of implementation, but the town council representatives to this committee would like to understand how, what is our sense of it? If it's possible and they were to move forward, is this something that we would want?
Is there a change in title or something like that? I would be concerned about any decreased perception of legitimacy. Is there any
I
difference
don't
there?
think so. I think, we'd be the Sustainability Committee of Portola Valley. It would just be, this relatively small detail of how the members were appointed would not be a vote of the town council to make us members, but it'd be some other, process that would include town council input and my input or our, some of our input. So
I assume it would add essentially another layer because we would be interacting solely with a subcommittee of the town council, I would guess. And then that subcommittee would present our recommendations to the full committee. I don't know.
I'm not
Maybe
sure
Jeff
that's
could
required.
clarify.
no, I think if there was a specific, I mean, if you're recommending something, I think it would be presented to the council the way it is currently. So what happens now is if somebody, if you have an open space and some opening on the committee and someone applies, then, the mayor and the committee chair kind of, confer and decide the person's an appropriate, addition to the committee. The mayor approves it, but then it goes on the consent agenda at a council meeting. And so the full council votes on it just on consent usually. This would be, then this would just be the first part of that, but not the second. So the mayor and the chair of the committee would agree that, to appoint the person, and then it wouldn't go to the full council on the consent agenda. It would just be the two of us would appoint. But in terms of just sort of advisory or things, anything that you wanted to present to the council would be just the same as you present it now.
So there wouldn't be a subcommittee? The mayor
Um,
would be the subcommittee all by him or herself?
That's kind of how the appointments are handled now to some extent. We might create a subcommittee just in case there were sort of questions that came up, but you still have your council liaison. So that would be a point of contact, and we'd probably still get updates from their council liaison for each meeting.
Is any other committee looking to switch to this?
Oh, yeah. No, I think.
Okay, we're not the only one.
No, all the committees.
Oh,
There are a
okay.
few that have a charter, like ASCC, where they actually make decisions. They make binding decisions. And so it's not so easy to extract them from the Brown Act, and probably they won't, good chance they won't be separated, or altered in their form, right?
The commissions are legislative. They make sort of or judicial. I can't remember which. They make actual kind of decisions on sort of basically on property and land use. So they have to be Brown Act.
Right.
But all the other, like conservation, nature and science, all trails, there are some that that may not change, but there are quite a few which could and seem to be interested in doing so.
I've got a question about this weekend. So with the Brown Act, I gather you can't have subgroups of people assembling necessarily, but if only 3 of us are manning things in the earlier
You can
hours,
assemble, you can be together, but you just can't talk about business of the committee.
gee, that's
You-
not convenient, is it?
Well, we can't,
You can't
Yeah.
talk about a specific decision, like if there, if you can't talk about something you know is going to be discussed and decided by the committee. You can't, the specific ruling is you can't form a consensus. I mean, a lot of Brown Act concerns are much more about perception of a Brown Act violation. If 4 of you are sitting somewhere, somebody looks and sees you doing that and wonders if you're trying to, having a private, basically having a meeting offline,
I see.
even if you're just playing bridge.
Because I
Um,
feel like I'm still coming up to speed, and of course, I'm gonna want to be asking what we've been working on and such, so.
No one
that's-
ever
that's
gets
not a problem.
confused about the Brown Act.
Okay.
The recommendation they made to us during the Brown Act training was to pick a buddy on the committee, one other person.
Yeah.
And then you just interact with them offline if you have questions and whatnot. That way you come up to speed. That way you don't run into any risk of
Yeah.
potentially making what's called a sequential decision. You talk to me and we kind of decide something together, and then I talk to Anita, we decide that's something together, and then Anita.
The dreaded serial meeting.
the
Yes.
serial meeting.
Yes.
So to avoid that, but asking questions about what's been done in the past is perfectly fine.
we are careful about emails, not, unless it's just a simple informational email. That anything that could engender a discussion, we would not typically send it to the committee. It needs to be on the agenda of a meeting. And so occasionally there'll be things that get sent as a BCC just to avoid interactions, because we're not allowed to deliberate about
But
things.
this would get rid of all that.
This,
things,
if we were to do that,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
would eliminate that. We'd be able to have, exchange
Right.
of ideas and whatever, and we'd still have open meetings, and those ideas, they wouldn't, before they became the consensus of our committee, they would still come before us, but there might be some pre-work that could be done, and we wouldn't have to restrict the pre-work to just no more than 3 of us together. So stuff like that would be loosened up.
I'm sure we've all had things where like you're on a text thread with 6 or 7 other people and you have a conversation over the course of a week and you get somewhere.
Yeah.
And you also become closer, you learn things from other people. And I think that's something that's missing from this community that would make
Yeah.
it much more productive.
Yeah. And we could do that as long as we were then, open about what we were thinking about with the public and gave them a chance for input as well. Okay, so it sounds like, I think we should probably have a vote on this one. So somebody needs to make a motion. What is it that you move?
That we simplify our committee rules. Convert to a form that is not under.
All right, that we favor doing that.
I would suggest you vote on a recommendation to the council for that. Yes.
Okay, a recommendation to the council that for our committee, they implement this new approach, which would not have us be a formal Brown Act entity. Is that right? Did I say that?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's right. And before you vote, make sure you take public comment.
Ah, yes, thank you, Jeff. Jeff has done this before. Okay, yes. we have-
Yeah. Learn that one the hard way.
Yeah. Well, that particularly for this one, this is one where the public really should be able to say something. So, Christy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I do have a question. Did I hear this correctly? That if you're not a Brown Act, if you're a Brown Act committee, all 5 council members vote. If you're not a Brown Act committee, only the mayor and the vice mayor votes. Did I hear that correct?
We're talking about new members.
I think
That's just for appointing new members.
That's
Yeah,
what I mean. So
Yes.
only the mayor and the vice mayor appoint the member and accept the member. And right now, all committees require the full 5 vote.
On the
So-
consent agenda, yes, that's correct.
And it hasn't been actually determined, defined yet that it would be the mayor and the vice mayor.
Right, it's
Based
gonna-
on what we were told, it's just a
Okay, I wasn't
subcommittee.
sure
So
about that actually,
Any
yeah.
two people on the council could form a subcommittee to appoint members to these non-Brown Act committees.
So it leaves the decision to 2 people versus 5. Yeah,
For admitting new members to a committee, yeah.
right. And so,
Well, I
okay,
think it'd be interesting maybe to hear from Jeff, though, you know, when we say it's 2 people versus 5 people. The current way in which the 5 town council members vote on it, though, is not one that involves a lot of discussion or anything. And have there ever been instances where the full town council has second guessed the sort of the recommendation of the 2 or whatever
For the
make-
appointment of a member, not that I can ever recall, no.
right?
I think there was
Um,
someone who was, for some reason, not appointed. I can think of a couple instances.
Well, there are
yes.
people
There
who
have
haven't
been-
been appointed, but does that get screened out at the level prior to the consent vote?
There have been times where the mayor and the chair agreed that somebody was not appropriate for a committee. That's happened, yes.
But they've never been not.
The full council, I can't remember the full council ever pulling something and reviewing a specific appointment by the mayor. And I mean, those appointments, I mean, the main function of putting them on consent is that it's just publicly noticed that the person's been appointed, and we probably, I mean, we might very well do that anyway. I mean, we might, even if there's not if it's not voted on, we might very well just announce the appointments so that at least the public knows that they're happening, so.
Okay, does that answer your question, Christie?
yeah, it did clarify it. And then I'm wondering if this committee received the document that Sarah and I believe Craig Taylor put together prior to the vote. Did you receive the document? So you can read the differences of what the committee could be?
I did send that. I did send that out, yes.
I think it was
Is it
in-
attached to the agenda so we can read it too?
If I remember, I think it was in our agenda last meeting, right?
I
Agenda
have to look, Christie, I have to look, I will look and figure that out.
It just
Prior.
seemed like some of the people on the committee didn't read that yet.
I think Scott's summary of the differences was pretty thorough. I mean, in terms of the actual action of the committee, there's very few things that would really majorly change in terms of the public. We would still have noticed meetings. We would still take meeting minutes. We would still invite the public to the meeting. We would still invite the public to comment. The only major change might be that among ourselves, we may discuss things outside of the public just to get, whether it's deciding on having a meeting on a certain time or whatever, or, just being able to text each other, being able to send an email to each other about an interesting sustainability.
Yeah, I think
technology,
Sarah
that sort of
just
thing.
expected that each committee get a copy of what she put together and then vote on it. That's just what I think would be great because they spent some time.
It
putting that
happened. I
document.
believe that did happen. I believe it was sent out, but do you have it there, Anita?
I'd have to find it. I
So
haven't
we'll,
found it out.
in the remaining time, I'll confirm that we did do that and that
It's
was.
just,
that was
yeah, I'd like
part
to
of it.
glance at it too. If I go
Sure.
to a meeting and you're voting on something, I just want to see what it is. Thanks.
Certainly. All right, so, well, I guess we need to find that. Maybe we should find that first before we do the voting. I don't think, do you think, Jeff, it's a prerequisite that we had that? People reviewed that, or is my summary good enough?
I thought your summary was fine. I mean, it's it's kind of up to you if you want to. I mean, you're sort of you've expressed an opinion here, and you're sort of you're formalizing kind of a recommendation. So you're not really. I mean, it's not you're not making an actual decision right now. And so I think that the committee understands the changes well enough and has expressed a consensus in terms of wanting to sort of move to that middle tier. of the document. So it's up to you. If you want to just leave it at this and say it's just that we take this consensus back, you could do that too if you don't want to if you don't want to actually vote on it.
Yeah, I think maybe if we don't vote and just say that we, in the minutes, we can say that I summarized the committee of committee meetings, that people in our committee are in favor of making this change. And what I'll do is I'll check to make sure we sent around the written description from Sarah Wernikoff. And if we didn't, I will send it out. And what we can commit to doing is if anybody reads that and has a different view, let me know, and I will add that to the comment that we send on to town council, so that there's more flavor to what we said. I'm pretty sure that I sent it around so people had the benefit of reading it, but I have to check that, and I'm not sure I'm going to find it in this next 5 minutes. Okay, we have another hand up. Rita, yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say to the chair, I really appreciate you possibly putting off this vote. Your group works really well. I've always been impressed by your group. I even checked out the battery charger last week. The previous person didn't bring the cart back, but it then suddenly got back to the library by the time I brought the battery back. But you guys do a really great job, and not knowing who on the council at this moment might say yay or nay to someone that you think might be really great. And in the past, I'd say in the past 2 months, I believe there were 2 people that were on the consent calendar and then were not allowed to be part of a committee. One, because that person lived in Ladera, and I can't remember the reason why the other person was denied, but that was through the consent calendar. And it gives the council an opportunity, and the council members know a lot of people in the community. And thank you for giving, our new council members an opportunity to chime in on, people that could be possibly on this particular committee, especially since you guys work so well. So
Okay.
thank you
Yeah.
for re-looking at that document. Appreciate it.
I think that wasn't really one of our problems with being under the Brown Act, the actual voting on members. I don't think we've really had an issue with that model, and that could be something that we that's compromised on. The main issues we've had are the quorums and and that hasn't been a big issue, but also the being able to attend meetings remotely as we're traveling or if we're sick. I mean, that's one, and there was one more, I can't remember. I mean, it's possible to still keep the same process for new members, if that's, if we discuss this more and that's an issue, but yet be not under the Brown Act.
No, I think
Or do they go hand in hand?
no, I think they go hand in hand. I
Oh,
think what
shoot.
makes it a Brown Act committee is that it is that the member is voted into their member role by the town council.
Right,
So it
but if
has to
it's
be
not a vote, if it's a consensus, if it's a discussion.
Oh, I don't know. I
think
mean-
what I'm hearing is that
Well-
people want to weigh in on new members for some reason.
Yeah, so I guess that's a good question. Yeah, Jeff, if you and vice mayor were to make a recommendation to town council, does it then have to be voted on, or can you just take feedback,
Well, I mean, so typically what happens is the committee, so somebody applies there's an open seat, somebody applies to the committee. Every committee is a little different. Often the committee itself sort of will have a discussion. Is this, does this seem like a suitable person? I typically just, when an application comes in, I typically just simply talk to the chair and get the chair's input. So if the chair says, I usually just leave it to the chair and whatever discussion they had among their committee. And again, by putting it on consent and having it voted by the council, it makes you a Brown Act committee. By simply agreeing, that by simply sort of, in most cases, just deferring to the committee chair, who is hopefully weighed in with the committee. My goal is to leave the decision with you as much as possible. I mean, yes, a council, by putting it on consent, a council member could pull the item and, you know, I mean, if anything, it gives council members sort of a veto power in effect over your decision making. So in my view, I mean, it, by leaving it out, by making it sort of an information item and not a vote, it gives you this opportunity to, it's less heavy-handed from your perspective. It's sort of you, the committee and the chair form their, make a decision. And then we can certainly announce it so that the public knows that someone's being appointed to the committee, but the council doesn't, by not weighing out, the council you know, you are no longer a Brown, you don't have to deal with the Brown Act limitations anymore.
And
If
will
that
no
makes
longer
sense.
will no longer be sued by fellow residents for potentially violating a Brown Act.
You would not be subject to that now.
Yeah, I guess, and as a practical matter, over the history of that you're aware of and all the people who have been on committees, given this is the way it's been done, has anyone from the town council during the consent thing ever said, no, that's a bad idea?
I do not recall that ever happening, no.
So, okay, well, I hear the feedback that we should not vote on this.
I don't agree with that feedback, but I heard it, but I don't agree with it. I think we've just wasted another 20 minutes of time. It's after 9 o'clock discussing something that's just not, that all of us are pretty much in agreement that we don't want to be a Brown Act committee. And we should just make that recommendation to town council. This is not a final decision for our committee. We haven't even been given that option yet, but this is just that we as members, based on the information that we know, feel that we would prefer not to be a Brown Act committee.
I agree.
Okay,
That is,
okay.
We've
Okay,
wasted
and I
enough
think,
time.
I think, and I will make sure that everybody has a copy of the write-up. If we didn't send it out for some reason previously. And then if there's any, we can take it back. I mean, this is a long train, right? So what we'll do is we'll put this on the agenda also for the next meeting. At the next meeting, if somebody has read that and decided, oh no, this is a bad idea, we can give different feedback to the town council. We will do that. We will say, no, we had a change of heart. So I think let's do the vote. Yeah, you're looking at me, Leffy, like you don't know.
We're gonna do it next meeting.
No, they need to know our input at this committee of committee meeting. And so I'm proposing a way to do that where we still allow for the possibility that somebody will have a different view having read the document, which I think is extremely remote as a possibility, but it is possible. And we'll still be able to then react, because there's nothing is going to get implemented along these lines for, order of a year. It's a long process. So, so with that, is there a motion?
somebody who knows how to. move
I make a
correctly.
motion that we do make a recommendation to the council that the Sustainability Committee prefers to not be a formal Brown Act committee.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. All right. We have, oh, I lost the agenda. Somebody-
Budget requests.
What's that?
The budget request.
Oh, the
was
budget
next one.
request, yeah, for the fiscal 23-24 fiscal year, we need to give an input on our budget request. And I think we're gonna have to wait, because I do think we need to look at the spreadsheet together. We've had we've had a running request, which is largely identical from year to year. It's order of $7,500, $8,000. And it really warrants some additional discussion though before we decide. So I think we're gonna have to, even though they wanted input before our next meeting, we're going to have to wait.
What if we just make a suggestion that it will be in the same ballpark right now and we'll give more specifics next month?
We can do that, but they need a spreadsheet. They need a spreadsheet.
What goes into it? Is it all these loaner things at the library?
There's the loaner things, there's some, money for PR, money for, like the giveaway items that we're giving at the fire preparedness fair. So,
Scott,
Attendance at
oh, I
events.
see.
yes,
I see Jeff is unmuted and shown himself. I'll let him speak first.
yes, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Brady. I was just going to say, if you were thinking about any kind of like an event, it might be, you might consider putting a placeholder in if you thought you might have want to do like an educational event at town center or something, and just try to come up with just the bare bones of a budget for it.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
That's my one
which is what we've
suggestion.
done in the past. We've sort of had proto items, though, like an event, kind of an event and so, but generally we've looked,
$2,000 is reasonable.
yeah, generally we've looked at the spreadsheet together though and said, yeah, that's the right spreadsheet. So I think that's probably the input that the council wants from us, is.
I can
As
show Scott, I can show this spreadsheet. I'm not sure that, so the budget is kind of a train that is on a track. And so I don't want you to miss the opportunity. Like you could
Yeah.
always ask, you could vote on it tonight, and then you could always
Yes, please do.
look at it
Please,
Why don't
If
again.
you
you-
have it
Okay.
handy, please.
Yeah,
bring
why
it
don't you
Yes.
show us the spreadsheet?
Um,
'cause
I
have
just
it
don't
as
want
well,
you to.
yeah. I have it as well. It's garden tour. We were planning $1,500. We ended up not doing that.
Can you blow that?
Yeah.
Increase the size of that?
Oh,
please?
yes, please, of course.
And then education outreach, social media ads, printed materials, and banners and mailers. We had $1,000 budgeted. A table at Earth Fair or other climate change, Earth Day activity, we have $600. That's the budget we're currently using for the Earth Day fair, the fair that's being held on Earth Day for wildfire preparedness. So we've used that budget for the banners and for the handout, the little plugs that we're planning to give away. Virtual technology tour, we've considered doing that. Prep, I'm not sure what that was for, $500 for prep. What was that?
Which one this one? Which
Oh,
one?
loaner. Oh, yeah, it gets cut off on my machine, right?
Oh,
Loaner, solar panel, battery backup. So this was,
Yeah, so this, basically, it's been pretty stable. The categories and the amounts have been pretty stable over time, and the total budget for our committee has been in the ballpark of 10,000. A little bit less in one year, and then last year, or the current year, 9,100, I think. So we could just say, yes, more of the same. I don't think we spend our budget entirely any year, right, Brandy?
so if we end
No,
up doing
I think
a
this year-
LOMI, if we end up doing a LOMI, I think that's gonna hit that number 5 budget of $500. We wouldn't be able to do anything else but that, so.
The
Ye-
loaner,
I mean, you
right?
guys are doing so well with that. I think you should, you should increase it. Or at least ask to increase it. This you've done. That is something, that could happen, right? That's something you've talked about, this special film. This one.
Yes, that would fit in with what Leslie was talking about, because we talked about maybe doing 3 films during the winter months, because that's the only time
Yep.
it works at the town center because of the light. But including on top of that would be other like lecture series for other dates. We talked about
This-
working on a compost thing with the nature and science people. So, yeah.
Do you want to do you want to move this one
Solution.
up a little bit then to back to 3,500 like it was then, and then move Cal Water down, the smart water meter down a little
I would
bit,
leave
or
it at, I'd leave it at 2,500 because I think the town has got some budget issues, so I don't want to overspend. Oh.
and then what about, why do I keep clicking that? Any of these others that you want to take down? Like, I don't think we have anyone Judy's not here from the garden tour, but I mean,
And we
should
don't have Dell anymore, so that she was the one championing the garden tour. So I don't think nobody's gonna be doing a garden tour from this group.
So should we eliminate that? Or
Well, I think the Conservation Committee asked they were thinking of doing something and they asked for our support. So I don't know that we need to put $1,500 towards it from our budget, but maybe 500 we could contribute or something.
here, let me get the.
Number five.
Number 5.
Number 5, I can't hear. Sorry, number 5, what?
Number 5 is, she asked which one has the
Oh.
loaner items, like the Lomi, and that's number 5.
Induction.
That
Yeah,
one
we
you
should
did.
just
Top.
rewrite that to say not loaner solar panel, but just loaner sustainability or sustainability loaner items, maybe a little more general that way.
This I think you could bring down if you wanted to bring something else up. But
And
What is the total now?
9,100. So that's exactly as it was this
Yeah.
year. So I mean that's pretty good because then you don't,
yeah, I think that's fine. And if the town council needs us to reduce somewhere, we probably can accommodate that or whatever.
Okay, so you can just vote, and then if you want to vote on this, I'll send it to Scott and he can submit it to Cindy. And then at least you have something, I mean,
Yeah,
that way you
and
don't miss it. I don't want you guys to take a chance
that
of
would be
missing.
great. Yeah, and if I could get a copy for the minutes, that would be perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you.
Brandy. Thanks for pulling that
Sure.
off so quickly. Yeah, I understand that we need to get something into the system, given the timing. You shall move.
Mm-mm.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Okay,
Oh, did we need to get
I did.
community?
I did. I looked. No, I mean, there were no.
Oh, perfect.
So-
Okay.
So with that, for next time, what items so I think we're going to have the loaner discussion next time, which we deferred. The other item we deferred was which?
The CERT
The
project,
CERT, yeah, how we're going to interact with the CERT process.
the feedback from the wildfire thing.
Feedback from the wildfire thing.
We can do G right now.
What is it? We said we were going to defer that till next time.
Just because it's getting late.
We voted on this, we voted on it and you said yes. Okay, no, it was CERT, there were 2 items to be deferred. Okay. I think we're gonna defer it. Okay.
I'm listed under the loaner program, but maybe pull it out for next time because my item is, I've spoken with some of the San Mateo County Sustainability Office on some of the programs they have for kids. And I
Okay.
could update on that, but it's
Yeah,
not really related
It's
to the
not
library.
loaner specific. Yeah, okay. Did you get that, Rebecca?
I just put down loaner discussion for next meeting.
All
So
right.
I didn't go into
Pull
detail.
pull mine out as a separate thing, the SMC Sustainability Kids Program.
You want that to be separate?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not a
not a
library
library.
item.
SMC sustainable.
And if I could just 2 seconds, the feedback from Garrett was that he would like to see a plan
Yes.
for everything we want to buy to
Yes.
loan out.
Yes.
Because the library has capacity issues. So that's
Yeah.
what Garrett said. So the issue can be next month. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the discussion should be next month, but just so you know, what we're going to be discussing is that he would like a plan and I couldn't address that. So
Right.
so if we could think about other things that we might want to buy for loaning in the future,
Yes.
that would help move it along
Unfortunately, when
next
we,
month.
we had the backup power thing and then I told him we had the induction cooktop and he said, I'd like to know, what else is there
I
going to be?
see.
And I said, that's probably it. And then now we're coming back,
All
you
right.
know, 6 months later saying,
That's
oh, and
why.
then there's this
Okay.
Lomi thing, which is gonna smell like trash. So, um,
No.
so,
The point is it doesn't, but.
I know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
so, yeah, so we have to, maybe we
Yeah.
need a longer range view of how many of these items there are, and maybe we're gonna have to rotate them, you know, and like, or take some out and
Yeah.
put some in, because they are gonna be space limited at the library. We've got these big things, so let's talk, I guess there's no urgency to
There's
do
no
that.
urgency, yeah.
Because it's really a gating item for the Lomi or anything else that's
Yeah,
next, which
anything
we're not
else, yeah.
ready to do. Okay, good. Any other topics for next time? Okay, with that, is there a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
That's second.
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you.